I used to do this series called Pro vs. Con, where I give you tips on how to exhibit at artist alleys and Comic Cons. Well, don't pay too much attention to those older videos because everything I said back then, it was wrong. Greetings, people of the internet. I'm Scott with Circworks Art Labs. Welcome, mad creators, to the underground laboratory where we create robots, aliens, zombies, and other imminent threats to humanity. And like I said, I used to do this series called Pro vs. Con, where I give tips on how to exhibit at Comic Cons, Artist Alley, pop culture events, and could just kind of share what I've known from doing a few of those shows. Now, it's been a while since I've done one of those videos, so I kind of wanted to give you an update. Now, what I said before about everything being wrong, that's not entirely true. I think if you go back and watch some of those videos, you're going to get some good advice. But I'm rethinking a lot of things as far as how I go about exhibiting at cons. So yeah, a lot of what I talked about in those older videos still, I think it's still valuable information, but what works for you guys might not necessarily work for me, and vice versa. I tend to do things differently, and I'll explain when I go into it. But this video is going to be a lot about branding your booth, kind of not just putting your artwork up for sale, but trying to get people to know who you are and remember you. And there's a number of different ways to do that. The ways that I did before, like I said, we're switching around a little bit because in doing these cons, you kind of constantly have to change things around, figure out what's working, what's not working. So this video is going to be more about taking those things that I felt that may not be working to my advantage and changing those around, and we'll get into that in a minute. So I'm getting ready to exhibit at Phoenix Comic Fest, and if you're interested, if you're going to be in the Phoenix area, Memorial Day weekend, it's Thursday through Sunday, and it's 2018 if you're watching this later. But I'll be in the Artist Alley. I'll be at tables 1410 and 1412 if you want to look me up. So one of the tips that I want to give you before you go and exhibit at a con or anime festival, whatever it is, you kind of want to do you want to set up your booth beforehand, maybe at home. Try to kind of figure out what everything looks like, just so when you get to the show, it doesn't, you're not like, oh man, this is taking me longer to set up, or this doesn't look right. On the spot, it's a little hard to do that. So I always like, especially when I'm doing in a completely redesigned setup, which is what I'm doing right now, I like to kind of do a setup, at home and just kind of figure everything out. So, and I tend to go a little overboard with my display. So definitely for me, I mean, if you just got a few things that you're going and you just kind of got your banner, your telescoping banner that you put up, and then your prints, and then you're done. First, I would probably maybe advise you to maybe rethink that and maybe try to offer something else. And again, this goes into branding. But if that's your deal, you might not need to do like a dry run setup at home. So I want to kind of give you my thought process behind that, and just show you what I'm doing differently this time around. And in order to do that, we're going to go up here to the parallel scope and kind of take a window into this booth setup already in progress. So let's check it out. Hey, so here I am in my booth now. It may look like I'm at a comic convention, but I'm not. This is actually my living room. So one thing I like to do is what I call a dry run setup, where I set just my whole booth up just to get a feel for it before the actual con. That way when I go to the convention, there's hopefully no surprises. Well, there's always surprises, but I'm trying to minimize those surprises. So I'm doing a lot of things differently this time around, and I've always adapted a little bit, show after show, figure out what works, what's not working. But this is probably the biggest sort of booth redesign I've done. If you've been following me for a while, well, if you've seen the underground layer, we've got some crazy, pipes and things that kind of, work their way around, and it's sort of like a Willy Wonka-esque aesthetic to it. And that's kind of the same aesthetic I was using for my booth to kind of tie everything in together. The thing that I'm realizing at conventions is when you go there, there is just so much stuff. There's so much eye candy, so much, you know, going on that people get lost. I mean, it's hard for them to take everything out, take everything in, rather. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to simplify a lot of things, and in doing that, I'm also trying to elevate sort of my products to make them look more attractive. Because I am not selling fan art, I've got to work a little extra harder. I've got to try to, you know, somehow wow some people and somehow get people to take notice of what I'm doing here. Because if you are selling fan art, you kind of have that advantage of, well, they already know these characters, and so sometimes you can just go to a booth, you can, you know, put up your backdrop and you just hang your prints and maybe a banner and everything, and you can do pretty well, depending on, you know, it does depend on how well you draw the fan art, I think, nowadays. I think in the beginning, you could just go there selling any kind of fan art. Now it's a little bit harder because there's a lot of competition, a lot of excellent fan artists out there. Since I'm not doing fan art, I've got to do things, you know, like I said, I've got doing things a little differently. So one of the things that I'm doing is trying to, like I said, elevate the product line. And in doing so, one of the things that I'm doing is I've decided to frame all my pieces of all my artwork. And I was really surprised at how well it looks. When I got these frames because I was doing an art gallery show, because I had never bought frames, and you don't see a lot of people framing their artwork in comic conventions. It's usually, you know, they're usually either bagged or just put up. Now the bags, that's something that that I used to do, is I put the prints in the bags, hung them up. They get a lot of glare. You're still seeing a little bit of glare, but these are all matte finished, and that's just because the amount of lights and everything in here. But to minimize that, because again, when people are walking by, you want them to be able to see your artwork, and if there's this bright glare over it, that's another reason why I'm not really big on glossy prints. But that's sort of a personal preference. But anyway, so I had to, for this gallery show, I had to buy some frames, because in a gallery, your stuff is supposed to be in frames. The other thing, as far as, I forgot to tell you, that as far as that glare, I took all of the glass out of the frames. Actually, it was acrylic. They like these acrylic sheets. So I took all those out. So it's basically just the artwork and the frame around it. Now, I'm not technically selling the frames. If I get a lot of response from people asking, oh, can I buy the frame? The first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna direct them to where they can find it online, because they can get it cheaper online than they could through me. But if I get a lot of response, people wanting to buy the frames, then I'll probably maybe start carrying those. But that's, you know, that's a whole other layer of having to bring things to the convention. And one of the other things I'm trying to do, I'm trying to make this so I can compress this thing down as much as possible. And I'll kind of get back to you on that. I haven't taken all this down, but I'm trying to see how compact I can make all this when I'm shipping it and everything. Not shipping, but, you know, when I'm bringing it to the convention, because this is a local show. Now, eventually, if I decide that I want to start doing some more out-of-state shows, I'll need to condense that quite a bit. So that's another thing that I'm working on right now. So anyway, so we got the artwork framed and everything, which I really like. The other thing that I'm doing is, I've always had problems. I used to just tape my prints up, and these frames, they're not super heavy because there's, like I said, there's no acetate or glass or whatever in them, but they do weigh more than just regular prints. But I used to have this issue with just, you know, taping them up with prints falling down and everything, or just kind of halfway falling down and moving over, because I would have prints taped on top of each other. And it was kind of a cool system, because, you know, you could just fold them all up and then unfold them, and it's sort of like an accordion style thing, and just hang them. And that was pretty good. This is a new system where, let me find this. So let me get this frame here. So I don't have it here, but what I did with these, now this is one that's just gonna be on my table. So this is kind of the frame here. What I did was I got some industrial strength Velcro, and this is good up to, like, I think 10 pounds or whatever. And so I put Velcro straps on the bottom, strips rather, and then on the top I took a heavy duty stapler, and I just stapled these on the top. So basically it's just a matter of Velcroing these things to each other. I can just pop these up like that, and it really works very well. It's super quick. It doesn't take me that long to set everything up, and I think it really looks nice. So, and like I said before, the other thing I'm trying to do is trying to simplify things. Before, when I had this elaborate, again, Willy Wonka type style setup, it was really cool, and I look to, like, one thing you want to do when you're selling your work at a convention is sort of look to retailers and kind of see how they do it. And one retailer that I really like is Johnny Cupcakes. And if you're not familiar with Johnny Cupcakes, check them out online. But they are a t-shirt company, but they sell, everything that they do is branded as like a bakery. So when you walk into their shop, it looks like a bakery. They've got ovens and you pull them down and there's t-shirts in there. They've got, you know, like they look like freezers with t-shirts on racks and things. And it's just really cool. I think when you walk in, I think it's like a giant, it might be like a giant oven or something, I don't know, but it's really cool. And in a space all by itself where you're just dealing with regular retail space, kind of boring everything, that stuff really stands up. But at a comic convention, that can tend to get lost. So that was kind of the route I was going with before, with that whole factory vibe. I even, like, my tabletop was even it looked like a conveyor belt. So you can tell, I mean, there was just so much stuff to bring in. So these were just sections of my tables, and these would rest on the regular tables that they give you. And you can see kind of here, and I kind of raised it, and this is another thing that I'm doing differently, and I'll show you this in a little bit. But because there was like a gap here between where this was raised off the table, I would store all my prints in here. And I'm not going with this setup this time, but these things are heavy. There was like 6 of these, and if I was using a corner booth, there was also a rounded kind of corner piece. And so I'm eliminating that. Now, I like all that stuff, but again, with all this other stuff to look at, you tend to get lost. And I started thinking, you know what, I just want to focus on the artwork. So a lot of what I'm doing, I've kind of changed my sign around, and now I'm going to walk around with the camera and kind of show you everything. Some of it's out of frame right now, but everything that I'm doing is, I mean, I've got my branding, CircWorks Art Labs, Mad Science Supply, all over the place. I mean, there is so much branding on here that, because there's also a lot of confusion, because people don't know, when they're looking at something new, they don't know what it is. It's like, what's this? But if I plaster my name all around this booth, not just on the top, not just a banner, but all over the place, and you'll see when I walk around, hopefully that will give people more of a chance to understand what it is and everything, and not forget. It's like when you're listening to a commercial for like a car commercial or something. They're gonna mention the dealership or the phone number over and over and over again. Sometimes they'll add a little jingle or whatever. So anything you can do to make people remember, you know, remember you, and it's kind of just drilling that into their brain. Like, this is a Mad Science Supply. If you're into mad science, if you're into that kind of stuff, that's what this is. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. So I'm simplifying everything. Everything basically is just black and white except for the products. So hopefully that's gonna not create as much confusion, because before I had, and I talked about this on a previous version, but I had this really cool sign. It was all cut, you know, laser cut out of, well, not laser cut, but like hot wire tools cut out of foam, hard coated, and it said CircWorks and kind of my old logo that was kind of funky and had a gear for the O and everything like that. And people, like, they looked at it, it was too hard to read, like, on first glance. It was like people were thinking it said Sewer Works, plus with all the pipes and everything. I think they thought it was sort of like a Ninja Turtle-esque vibe, because those pipes and everything looked sort of like a sewer. So that really got confusing. So that's when I first started going with this sort of black and white simplified logo, but now I've just got it kind of everywhere. Another way I'm trying to simplify things is how I present the products, the product displays and everything. So before, I had these, back to this confusion thing. So I was selling these, I designed these prints, these little mini movie prints, you know, Attack of the 50-Foot Brain, Planet of the Space Slugs, Night of the Glob, and they would come with these, you know, they would come with these little lab products and everything. So I would tell people, oh, if you buy this product, it's this much, and it comes with the mini movie print and all this. And that got a little confusing because it was just too much. So one thing I'm doing right now is I'm kind of separating that, because I also had these displays. So I had these, you know, getting back to that kind of, you know, factory vibe and everything. I had these little displays, and these were on here, and you know, I thought it was cool, a cool way to present the artwork and show the little product up here and the poster and everything. But even with all that, it was still hard for people to get an idea of what this is all about. So again, getting rid of all this kind of colorful, fancy stuff and going with just some nice black displays, as you can kind of see here. So I built these displays, and I'll kind of show you how I did. And again, when I walk around, I'll get a little bit of a close-up. So again, it's just sort of a black display. I'm separating those products from the posters. I'm gonna create one price point for all of these products. Now I haven't done my prices yet, but when I do, one of the things that I'm gonna do is, I've tried different things. I've tried like the buy two, get one free thing, but I think what I'm gonna do, so for these are my most popular selling prints, this size here. So I think I'm gonna sell those for 20 a piece and then 2 for 30. I'm gonna see how that works, but everything else is going to have sort of an upsell thing. So these products here I'm gonna sell, I think, for $8 or 2 for 12. And so hopefully that'll get people to buy multiple of these. But I've noticed a lot of people, and it kind of bums me out because people sometimes just want the products. There's like slime and crazy like putty and all kinds of stuff like that, and things that crawl down walls, all that stuff. So sometimes people, they just want that. They don't really care so much about the print. So I'm just gonna sell that by itself. I'll sell the prints by themselves. Now if somebody wants to buy like 4 of them, I'm just gonna say, oh cool, I'll throw this in for you and throw that print in. But I'm not gonna explain, oh you buy the dun dun dun, unless I've got them engaged, and I'll say, you know, if you buy 2, it's this price, but then if you buy 4 or whatever, I will throw in a free print and all that. So trying to separate that, again, make everything as simple. It's like KISS, keep it simple, stupid. And not that the people walking through these cons are stupid. You might think, you know, well, there's signs all over telling people this or that or what the prices are, but I've known from walking around conventions myself, when you do that, there's just so much stuff, you can't pay attention to everything, and you end up asking questions that are just right in front of you. I'm like, oh man, I'm sorry, I didn't see that or whatever. And that's the case with people walking through cons. But just, you know, that acronym, keep it simple, stupid. Think about that. Think of how you can simplify everything, make everything come across real easy. Again, I think, you know, if you're selling fan art, it's probably not that big a deal because they've already got the history behind it. They can say, oh, I know who Deadpool is, I want that print. But, you know, the other thing, one of the things I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to push my own IP, my own characters, all that kind of stuff. And so I don't have that advantage of people already knowing what everything is. So that's why I'm trying to, you know, brand myself all over the place, because, you know, I hope when people buy from me, they'll remember that, yo, this was this cool Mad Science Supply, you know, booth and everything, and not just, oh, this is where I got this, my favorite character, because they're probably not going to remember you so much. They're probably going to remember that character. Now, there are some people that are doing sort of the fan art right. I think Will Terry, if you've seen his videos, and he's done a lot of videos kind of like this, where he kind of goes through and talks about his whole process of selling at cons, and he does really well. One, because he's got like millions of advertising dollars behind him because he's selling fan art, but 2, because he's doing great fan art and something different and something that stands out, and he does really good with his branding. I think people that shop at him, I think that they're gonna probably remember his name, because he's got his name all over the place, and most people do, but for whatever reason, I just think the way he's doing things, I think you might remember him because it's really unique. But you might want to check out Will Terry if you aren't already. So that's one cool way to do fan art. So back to these displays, I want to show you how I kind of built these displays. Now, I did these out of wood, but originally I did them out of just the foam core or foam board. Just as a template, and I was going to use these. And if you want to do it, you know, if you're not really good with working with wood or anything like that, you can do the same thing. This is just, again, this is just foam board, black foam board, and you can kind of see these little grooves in here. So all these kind of slide in here. So all these, they just kind of slide in here, and then it creates, you know, it creates something like this. But the cool thing is as big as this display is, it can be broke down to this, all right? So that's really cool, and that's the one thing that I'm really thinking about is how can I break everything down? And so far, almost everything I have, more than any booth I had before, can be broken down and condensed, and that's like a major thing of what I'm going for. Same thing with this. This is another kind of display where I've got my buttons and everything. Same principle. It's a little different design. I've got some pegboard here with the little pegboard things for hanging, you know, buttons and things off of there. So yeah, I've got that, and I've got, you know, my spinner racks over here. I don't know if they're out of frame. I'll show you. But and those are kind of the bulkiest thing that I have. I've got a couple of spinner racks. They can't really break down as much. These here, and I don't know if you can see these are just sort of wire racks. I've got 2 wire racks. They fold a little bit, but they're still a little bulkier. So I don't know. I mean, I might try to figure out a way to put these prints on something like this too, if I can break those down in the future. But I've already got the wire racks, and I kind of do like them and everything. So yeah, simplify everything. The other thing is my focal point. So I don't know. I mean, for me, I like to, anytime I have a new product, I want to really focus on that product. Now these 2 products right here, this Discover Your Inner Geek, I've got a guy version and a girl version, or vice versa. Guy version, girl version. And it's just, these are my exclusive prints for Phoenix Comic Con. So they invited me as a guest. Now you don't necessarily need to be a guest to do an exclusive print for a Comic Con, but it might be a good idea if you can, because a lot of times they'll put those exclusive prints on the website, or for Phoenix, if you are a guest, I think they put them in the program too. So I'm hoping that will draw a lot of people to my booth that want these. And I've seen a lot of people that do these exclusive prints, and it's just a variation of whatever. It's usually not fan art, because I know, well, it depends on the con. I know Phoenix won't let you use fan art for your exclusive prints. But I've seen people that do their own characters, which is cool. But again, not too many people know that. So since I'm not using fan art, one thing I can do is I can tie in, and I think most conventions want you to do this, is tie the convention in. So Phoenix Comic Con slogan is Discover Your Inner Geek. So I thought, oh, that's cool. Let me come up with an idea for that. So I've got, I used 2 geeks, and it's all annotated. There's all these little things here telling, you know, what everything is, the sort of the you know, what makes a geek and everything. So hopefully that'll draw a lot of people to the booth and everything. And because this is the main thing, these are limited editions. They're going to be signed and numbered and everything. So you'll only be able to get them at this show. And because of that, I've got my plutonium case here. This usually gets a lot of attention, so it's right in the middle. Hopefully that's the one thing that isn't sort of that black and white display. So hopefully that right in the middle creates a focal point. The people will see that right up front and center. And this is the main thing I'm trying to push right now, are these prints. Now in the back, I've got a couple larger prints. Now this will be a little higher. My ceiling only goes so far. It's like right up to my ceiling fan right now, which is out of frame. But so this will be a little higher. So these prints down here on the bottom, you'll be able to see a little better. These 2 framed, I got a canvas print over here, and then another framed print over right here. And so those you'll be able to see a little bit better, because this will be raised up and everything. So, but again, I can't go that high right here. So let me, you know what, I'm gonna take you around the actual table and kind of show you kind of a little closer up what everything is, and kind of give you an idea of some of this setup close up. Okay, so here you can see, right up here, I've got my branding, CircWorks Art Labs. Now the Science of Geekology thing, I may eventually get rid of that, because it might be too much with that, plus the Mad Science Supply Company. It might just be, I mean, I like the look of it. And it does kind of explain a little more, because I do a lot of geeky type stuff. So I like that idea of science, geekology. So we'll see about that, whether I keep that or not. But I just kind of want to pan around. Now, over here you can see there's another sign, Mad Science Supply Company. If you look over there, Mad Science Supply Company, you know, so any direction you're coming at, you're going to see this. And that's a major thing, because as people kind of go through the convention, some people browse in different ways. Some people are going to look up, some people are going to look down, some people are going to just look straight forward and not pay any attention to anything. But you want to try to capture somebody's eye using any way you can. So whether again, we've got a backdrop right here. Then tables. So you want to have things propped up. You want to have things laying down. So if people are coming down here looking at this, if people are kind of mid, you know, sort of halfway with their eye level, it just depends. Maybe some people walk by looking up, and you want to just capture that. So again, I've got branding all along here. Look, on all the product displays: Mad Science Supply Company, CircWorks Art Labs, Mad Science Supply Company. Now before when I had the conveyor belt, I mean, that was pretty cool looking and everything, but I wanted something else to kind of take place of that, and that's going to be just this backdrop, black backdrop with this bright white lettering and everything. It's hopefully going to stand up, and it's subdued enough with just black and white that everything else, all this colorful stuff, is going to really pop. So again, going back to the way people browse, you want to take that into consideration. So, you know, some people might want to flip through something. Some people might want to look up here. But here, we'll kind of go around the table. So I got my spinner rack. This is going to be my original, these are my original blueprint prints. And yes, I will have prices on all this stuff. I'm still kind of figuring out the price points and all that. This will have another display that says, check this out, it's in 3D. So this is my 3D print. So this kind of adds an interactivity to it. You know, come check out the 3D print and everything, and then people do, and it's really cool. And it gets people to come also, other people, because when people see somebody staring at something, they've got those 3D glasses on, they're like, oh, that's cool, let's check out what that's all about. And so that interactivity, you get people to the booth. The more people you have at the booth, the more people you have at the booth, meaning a crowd begets a crowd. So if you get a crowd going, that crowd's only going to build, because people are like, oh man, this is what's this all about. So of course you got postcards, and I've got some new ones that I'm going to put out. And again, even though I have most of my prints behind me, I'm starting to do this also with a portfolio, because some people, like I said, people browse in different ways. Some people want to look up at the backdrop and see the prints. Some people want to flip through stuff, and there'll be a few prints that aren't in here, but I want to create this, and I may prop this up a little better, but I want to create this portfolio so if people want to just browse through things, people like to browse. And that's the other thing with this kind of stuff. You know, prints like these, my smaller prints, people like to flip through them. Now most of these are the same, but I'll have some other prints in there as well. These are my sort of mystery boxes. This is sort of my answer to Loot Crate. So these are my test tubes. And I may create a little display so they don't get knocked over, like drill some big holes that those things will slide into, or something like that. And I might have more of them there. I'm not quite sure the positioning here, because this is sort of, I gotta have a space, because all this stuff is fairly tall. You know, I'll be over here, so you're basically going to see probably from chest up. But I've got to have a way to interact with other people, so I might need this as a little window if I need to reach over and shake somebody's hand or whatever like that. So anyway, again, here we've got all our framed prints and everything, our larger frame prints, my canvas print. Most of these are available in different sizes. You can see the Sriracha one here is a small one, and then the canvas print. But all these larger prints, no matter what size they are, they should have at least a smaller version. And I don't have smaller versions of all the largest ones, but you know, that's all right. So anyway, so here we go. We're kind of going to walk around. We've got, again, my my mini prints, or not mini prints, but my smaller prints, and then my comic books. That's the new Life in Space comic anthology. And here are the products. I'm still working on labels for these. These will have labels on them and everything. Again, more branding and everything. But those are all of those. Again, my focal point. This is the Discover Your Inner Geek print, and my bow ties. I've got two of the same ones. I got to redo one of those because I ran out of that one, so working on that. Here are some stickers and some buttons. I've tried selling buttons a number of different ways. Sometimes they sell better just individual, but I decided to pack these up because it got too confusing. I had buttons on boards just as a display, and then I had all my buttons in the back, but people would just pull them off the board and say, oh, hey, I want these. I'm like, oh, those are kind of the display. I've got them back here, and then I have to go put them all back on and everything. And so anyway, but I kind of like having these button packs. Here are, again, my little mini movie prints and some more smaller prints. We've got another spinner rack with my postcards on there. So yeah, that's pretty much the display. And again, you know, to sort of reiterate, branding, brand your stuff, make people aware of who you are. Any way you can stand out amongst the crowd, especially, you know, if you're selling fan art, because everyone else is selling fan art, you want to separate yourself. You want people to remember, well, why is my fan art, not just because of the artwork, but how are people going to remember me, as opposed to just remember those characters I'm selling or whatever. So, and if you're like me and you're selling your own original thing, it's even more important that you brand everything from every angle. Again, Mad Science Supply Company. I could walk around here. Mad Science Supply Company. It's on the other side of that there. It's on here. All this stuff here. So people are hopefully not going to be as confused as to what I'm doing here. Again, and you know, keep it simple. Keep it simple. We've got, you know, everything on mine is, you know, black and white. Now everyone's got to have their own thing. Maybe you want to go with sort of like a brown backdrop to kind of, you know, stand out, maybe more earth tones or whatever, and that can kind of separate. But you got to figure out, try to do something different that people aren't doing that's going to make people take notice of your booth. Again, I'm also trying to class it up a little bit with having all my artwork frames, because very few people are doing that. And I think it kind of gives people the impression of, this is what it's going to look like in my house. You know, if I got this print, oh man, that really looks nice frame, that would look great in my house. So you're kind of showing, like, if you're going to sell somebody a vacuum, don't just show a picture of a vacuum, show somebody using the vacuum, show what it's going to look like, you know, in action, so to speak. So now there's not a lot of action with the print, but you can kind of see how it looks framed on a wall. So yeah, keep it simple. You know, that's sort of the main thing that I'm trying to do here. And just, you know, separate your artwork, brand everything, make sure that brand is super strong. And again, the one thing that I am really trying to do this time around is trying to make everything so it can collapse and compress. And I will kind of show you whether I do another video or whether I do like a Instagram post or something like that. Once I get all this taken down, I want to see how it fits. But yeah, so that is my booth for 2018 Phoenix Comic Con, and the next time I see you will probably be at the show. So let's see if all this stuff works. So there you go, there is the setup so far. It's coming along, there's quite a bit of work still to be done, but I think I'm on schedule to get all this thing out coming up in a few days at Phoenix Comic Con. Again, if you want to check me out, if you're in the Phoenix area, Memorial Day weekend 2018, you can see me in the Artist Alley at tables 1410 and 1412. I will be there with something similar to that setup you saw, but it will be complete, and I think it's gonna, I'm really happy with the way it's turning out, so I hope it really makes an impact as far as getting people to the booth, you know, cutting out some of that confusion of what I'm all about, and hopefully create a memorable experience that people will say they're just not like, oh, I bought this print of so and so or whatever, but hey, there's this thing, this guy's doing this, you know, it's this Mad Science Supply Company or something. Something that people are going to remember. So that's kind of my whole goal. And hopefully also kind of boost my numbers a little bit from past conventions. So yeah, I'm curious to kind of get back to you and let you know. And I will do that. But as you can see, there's still a lot of work to be done. So I got to get back to that. I will see you guys later. That is all. Hey everyone, thanks for joining me here in the Art Lab. There's a lot of other great content on the channel, so click that subscribe button and you won't miss a thing. If you're an aspiring evil genius, visit CircWorks.com for all your Mad Science supply needs. And if you want to contact me, hit me up in the comments section or follow me on social media. I'm looking forward to it. I'll see you then.